The auditorium fell silent the moment the principal cleared his throat, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor as he strode to the center stage. His laugh cut through the air before he even said a word. Sharp, arrogant, the kind that could make anyone shrink under its weight. If she plays the piano... "I quit," he declared, his eyes scanning the crowd with cruel amusement. A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. Students exchanged glances, cell phones instinctively rising to capture what everyone assumed would be the next viral humiliation. In the center of the stage stood Zaria Thompson, a 16-year-old girl whose quiet presence seemed almost out of place amidst the grandeur of the prestigious New York Classical Arts Academy. Her fingers clutched a worn sheet of music, the edges frayed from years of practice, while her back remained straight, eyes fixed ahead, betraying none of the storm that raged in her chest. Around her, the marble floors gleamed and towering portraits of legendary composers stared down from gilded frames, silent witnesses to the audacity of a girl they had never met. The principal's blue eyes sparkled with mockery as he stepped closer, lowering his voice so that only the nearest students could hear. "Do you really think someone from your neighborhood can compete here?" He gestured dismissively toward the grand Steinway at center stage, a piano that cost more than some families' homes. Whispers spread like wildfire. "She's going to fail in 2 minutes," someone muttered. Others held up phones, already imagining the likes, shares, and comments that would flood social media. Every eye in the room seemed to weigh her, judge her, and predict her collapse. Yet Zaria's gaze did not waver. She inhaled slowly, grounding herself in years of preparation, early mornings at the community center, afternoons in borrowed practice rooms, nights spent studying the greats while the world doubted her. She knew the stakes. The humiliation would be public, the expectation impossible, but stepping back was never an option. The principal folded his arms, a condescending smile playing across his lips. "Go ahead then. Show us what you've got." Zaria shifted her weight slightly, fingers brushing against the piano keys. A small steadying breath left her lips as she glanced at the audience. Cell phones were recording, students leaning forward in anticipation, the tension almost tangible. "Somewhere," a judge muttered under her breath, uncertain whether this would be history in the making or another cautionary tale of arrogance meeting reality. And then, with a calmness that belied the pounding of her heart, Zaria spoke, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Let's see what happens." A hush fell over the auditorium, broken only by the faint, excited whispers of anticipation. The moment had arrived. The impossible was about to meet preparation, talent, and determination. And for anyone watching, either in the room or through the lens of a phone camera, it was clear that this was no ordinary performance. What would happen next? Stay tuned. Zaria Thompson wasn't born into privilege. She grew up in a cramped apartment in the Bronx, where sirens and car horns formed a harsh symphony outside her window, and the smell of street food mingled with the lingering scent of old carpet. Her neighborhood wasn't known for producing concert pianists. It was known for challenges, broken streetlights, overcrowded schools, and people who didn't expect much from anyone, especially a young black girl with dreams bigger than her zip code. But music had always been different. Zaria's earliest memories weren't of struggle. They were of sound. The soft, soulful melodies her grandmother, Evelyn Thompson, played on a battered upright piano in the corner of their living room. Evelyn had once been a jazz pianist herself, a woman whose talent had never been fully recognized because life demanded she care for family instead. Yet every note she pressed carried a story, a heartbeat, a legacy, and Zaria absorbed it all. "Listen carefully, daughter," Evelyn would whisper, her eyes shining as her fingers danced over the keys. "Music doesn't care about where you're from, but the world will. You have to be better than them, 10 times better, just to be seen." By the age of 7, Zaria was spending hours after school in the church basement, practicing on a piano that was out of tune, its keys sticky from years of neglect. While other kids her age were watching cartoons or playing outside, she transcribed sheet music in borrowed library copies, memorized recordings of Horowitz and Rubinstein, and painstakingly copied complex jazz solos her grandmother whistled. Every sacrifice became a brick in the foundation of her talent. Money was always scarce. Her mother worked double shifts, and Zaria often took odd jobs, babysitting, delivering groceries, tutoring younger kids, just to afford bus tickets to Manhattan for weekend masterclasses. Every step toward the prestigious academy on the Upper East Side was a journey through both distance and determination, a quiet rebellion against the limitations society tried to impose on her. Discrimination wasn't subtle. Teachers would mispronounce her name or assume she couldn't handle advanced pieces. Instrument stores followed her suspiciously, and older students whispered that she wouldn't last more than a few lessons. Yet each no became fuel. Each door closed in her face wasn't a defeat, it was a lesson in resilience, a challenge to prove her worth. Small victories punctuated her arduous path. The first time she played a complex Chopin nocturne without a single mistake, Evelyn wept silently. Her first recital at the community center drew applause not just for technique, but for the emotion she poured into each note. People began to whisper, "That girl, she's special." These glimpses of recognition, though fleeting, kept her moving forward, like sparks lighting the path through a dark tunnel. Flashbacks interwove with her present reality, painting a portrait of relentless preparation. She remembered the freezing winter mornings trudging through snow to reach the church, her fingers stiff but unwavering. She remembered nights hunched over library tables, her eyes burning from the dim fluorescent lights as she studied complex scores. And she remembered Evelyn's hands on her shoulders, guiding, correcting, inspiring, always reminding her, when they underestimate you, let your music speak louder than their words. By the time she walked into the New York Classical Arts Academy, Zaria was not merely a student. She was a culmination of years of invisible effort, countless unseen hours of practice, and an indomitable will forged by struggle. Every note she would play tonight was backed by a lifetime of preparation, a silent yet roaring testimony to her dedication. And while the audience awaited only spectacle and perhaps failure, what they did not know, and what no one had yet seen, was that Zaria Thompson was already a legend in the making. Every glance at her poised hands, every steady breath she took, every slight nod she gave the piano keys was a reminder that the real story had begun long before she set foot on that marble stage. The stage was set, the stakes were sky high, and Zaria was ready to transform years of sacrifice into a performance that would shatter every expectation. The principal leaned back in his leather chair, the corners of his mouth curling into a smirk that radiated superiority. "So this is the prodigy from the Bronx?" he said, his voice dripping with disbelief. "Tell me, little girl, do you even know what you're attempting?" A few students stifled laughs, while others whispered, "She won't even make it through the first page." Phones were raised, ready to capture the public humiliation that everyone expected to unfold. The principal's eyes gleamed with anticipation. This was to be his masterpiece of condescension. One of the judges, a stern woman with a pearl necklace, gave a quiet cough, perhaps in protest, but the principal waved her off. "Let's be honest," he continued. "Our students start at 4 with private tutors from Europe. You've had church lessons and a worn piano, haven't you?" He chuckled cruelly. Zaria felt the sting of his words, but her fingers remained relaxed at her sides. She remembered her grandmother's voice. "When they try to make you small, become larger than they can imagine." The echoes of late-night practice, endless scales, and borrowed library scores surged in her chest. Steadying her heartbeat, a group of students whispered behind their hands, exchanging bets. 2 minutes, one predicted. "She'll be crying before the first chord." Another raised her phone higher, smiling with the thrill of impending mockery. One of the judges leaned slightly forward, a subtle gesture of encouragement. Professor Morales, who had been quietly observing, whispered to Zaria, "Remember everything you've done. They may doubt you, but you know your power." Zaria inhaled slowly. The stage felt impossibly large, the piano enormous beneath her fingers. Her mind flickered with the memories of church basements, of freezing morning commutes, of library nights where only the music spoke to her. She had survived ridicule before. She could survive this. The principal's voice cut through her thoughts like a knife. "Go on then, play, but don't waste our time with something simple. I want to see whether you even understand music or if you're merely pretending to be extraordinary." A hush swept the auditorium. Cell phones poised, every eye glued to her. The stakes had never felt higher. This wasn't just a test of skill. It was a test of courage, resilience, and sheer will. Zaria's fingers hovered over the keys. Her mind raced for a split second. What if I falter? What if I don't live up to the years of practice? But then she silenced the doubt. They cannot define my worth, not now. Not ever. The principal's smirk widened. Shall we take bets? How long before she admits defeat, I say. 1 minute, max. He laughed, echoing through the marble halls. The tension in the room tightened like a drawn bowstring. Everyone leaned in, anticipating the collapse of a girl who dared to challenge their assumptions. Zaria pressed her fingers lightly against the first keys, feeling the cool, polished surface beneath her. The entire auditorium seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her failure. But in that suspended moment, she found clarity. She wasn't playing for approval. She wasn't playing to impress. She was playing to tell her story, years of struggle, resilience and unshakable determination, all culminating in this one impossible moment. And as she poised her hands for the first note, the whispers turned into bets, the bets into murmurs, and the entire room waited for a collapse that would never come. Zaria took a deep breath, letting the tension in the auditorium wash over her like a wave. The principal's smirk had grown into a faint frown, though he still tried to mask it with arrogance. Students shifted in their seats, cell phones poised, ready to immortalize what they assumed would be her downfall. But for Zaria, this wasn't about them. It never had been. Every note she would play tonight carried 12 years of sacrifice, determination, and countless hours of invisible work. Her fingers touched the keys. The first note rang out, clear, powerful, and unexpected. It was not hesitant. It was precise. It cut through the silence, a single declaration. She belonged here. The audience collectively inhaled, the mockery suspended in midair. The principal blinked, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. This wasn't what he had planned. The opening phrases flowed like a river, smooth yet commanding, each note articulated with control and finesse. The complexity of the piece was immediately apparent, and Zaria navigated it with astonishing ease. The students who had whispered and laughed moments ago now leaned forward, eyes wide, phones shaking slightly as they captured the scene. Even the rival pianist, a girl from one of Manhattan's elite conservatories, had stopped scribbling in her notebook and stared in disbelief. Flashbacks interwove seamlessly with the present. Zaria recalled the freezing mornings in the church basement, fingers stiff from cold yet striking scales with relentless precision. She remembered nights hunched over library desks, memorizing every nuance of Horowitz's recordings, copying sheet music until her eyes ached. Each flashback reinforced her resolve. The audience saw not just a performance, but a lifetime of preparation manifesting in real time. The principal shifted uneasily. Beads of sweat appeared at his temple as he whispered to one of the judges, "Impossible." "She can't, how?" But the notes continued, cascading in intricate patterns, technically challenging and emotionally charged. Zaria's hands flew over the keys, navigating complex arpeggios and polyrhythms with what seemed like supernatural dexterity. The auditorium's atmosphere changed gradually. Mockery gave way to disbelief, disbelief to awe. Students who had been recording to mock now recorded in reverent silence, capturing the brilliance before them. Whispers transformed from, "She'll fail," to, "How is she doing this?" The rival pianist's jaw dropped, eyes glistening with tears she tried to hide. Zaria felt the music flowing through her, every chord a statement of perseverance. She could hear her grandmother's voice echoing in her mind. "When they doubt you, play louder than their voices." Each note was a response to the ridicule. Each melodic line a rebuttal to years of underestimation and prejudice. The piece intensified, moving into passages most professional pianists would approach with caution, let alone a 16-year-old. Fast scales, double octaves, intricate syncopations, all executed flawlessly, as if her hands had learned a language beyond human limitation. The principal's composure disintegrated. His arrogance replaced by panic, disbelief etched across his face. "Stop. "We've heard enough," he finally shouted, though it was weak, almost pleading. The principal's words were drowned out by the commanding power of Zaria's performance. The audience ignored him completely, captivated by the mastery unfolding on stage. Zaria's internal monologue was calm, yet fierce. "This is what I've trained for. Every early morning, every late night, every rejection, it's all here in these keys. I will not falter, not now." She leaned into the piano, feeling every vibration, translating years of emotion into perfect execution. The performance reached its peak, passages deemed humanly impossible, lightning-fast runs, cross-handed leaps, dynamic shifts that would challenge even seasoned virtuosos were executed flawlessly. The audience gasped collectively, students' phones trembling as they filmed, capturing each impossible note. The principal's panic escalated. He gripped the arms of his chair, realizing his public bet was no longer theoretical. It was materializing in front of everyone. Flashbacks intensified here, showing Zaria's preparation from childhood to adolescence, piano lessons with Professor Chen, improvising in borrowed practice rooms, copying jazz solos whispered by her grandmother, performing at small community recitals, facing teachers' scorn and peers' mockery, all converging in this one climactic moment. Every emotion, every struggle, every triumph was encoded into her fingers, communicated through music. The final phrases approached, building like a storm. Each chord struck with power and precision, echoing through the marble halls. The audience was utterly still, except for the quiet whirring of phones, capturing the final moments of technical and emotional mastery. Rivals stared, jaws slack. Judges were frozen, realizing the gravity of what they were witnessing. Zaria's fingers flew across the keys in a final flourish, executing the most demanding sequences with a grace that made them seem almost effortless. The last chord exploded, resonant, perfect, and unyielding. Silence followed, heavy and complete, as if the world itself were catching its breath. Then came the eruption. Applause rolled through the auditorium like thunder. Students leapt to their feet, cheering. Teachers wiped tears from their eyes. Even the principal remained seated, frozen, the weight of his mistake pressing down on him. Cell phones recorded every moment, destined to spread this performance to millions online. Zaria rose from the bench with quiet dignity. No arrogance, only serene confidence. She had transformed years of struggle into a triumph impossible to ignore. Talent, preparation, and determination had silenced doubt, prejudice, and ridicule in a single performance. The audience's awe was palpable, reverent. The mockery of moments ago completely vanished. For those watching, Zaria Thompson was no longer a student from the Bronx. She was a force of nature, a legend born from discipline, courage, and uncompromising excellence. The performance didn't just end a piece of music. It shattered expectations, rewrote assumptions, and left every witness changed forever. The auditorium was alive with applause, yet a different kind of energy lingered, a tense, almost electric charge that came from the principal's stunned silence. He remained seated, mouth slightly open, hands gripping the arms of his chair. The public bet he had thrown so arrogantly now hung over him like a leaden weight. Every student's phone had captured the impossible, and within moments, the first clips began appearing online. "Did you see that?" whispered a student nearby, disbelief and admiration mingling in her voice. "She played better than anyone I've ever seen. Ever." Others nodded, faces flushed with awe and inspiration. The principal's smirk had vanished entirely. For the first time, he was confronted with undeniable evidence of Zaria's brilliance. With a shaky voice, he muttered, I suppose I owe you acknowledgement." The words sounded hollow even to him, but the students cheered louder, amplifying the moment. One brave voice called out, "You promised, Principal! You said if she played, you'd quit!" The room fell silent, the weight of his arrogance fully realized. Social media ignited. Within the hour, short clips were circulating on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Comments poured in. Unbelievable talent. And this girl just redefined impossible. The Bronx has a legend. The auditorium, once a place of mockery, became the epicenter of a movement celebrating determination, resilience, and the breaking of barriers. Mentors and teachers approached Zaria. their faces a mixture of pride and astonishment. Professor Morales, who had quietly encouraged her before the performance, now clasped her hands. "Zaria," she said, eyes glistening, "you've done something no one thought possible. Not just for yourself, but for every student who has been underestimated." Even the principal, though humiliated, had to concede. He stood, his shoulders slumped, and nodded. "Your performance, it's undeniable," he admitted, though his voice betrayed shame. The auditorium collectively recognized the gravity of the moment. Talent and preparation had conquered arrogance and prejudice. Zaria's grandmother, Evelyn, who had quietly watched from the back, wiped tears from her eyes. "That's my girl," she whispered. "You didn't just play the piano. You played your life, your story, your truth." The impact extended beyond the walls of the academy. Within hours, Zaria's performance had gone viral, attracting media attention and mentorship offers from renowned pianists and institutions worldwide. Invitations to masterclasses, competitions, and recording opportunities began pouring in. Social media users celebrated her not only as a musical prodigy, but as a symbol of resilience and determination in the face of systemic bias. The academy itself was forced to confront its shortcomings. Diversity policies were revisited, scholarship programs expanded, and the atmosphere of elitism and prejudice began to shift. Students and faculty alike realized that talent is universal, and opportunity must be equitable. Zaria's performance had done more than inspire awe. It had ignited real change. In the midst of this whirlwind, Zaria remained grounded. She smiled as messages from aspiring young musicians arrived, many expressing that her story had motivated them to pursue dreams they had thought impossible. Her confidence, long nurtured in private, now shone brightly in public, and as the videos continued to spread across the internet, the moral was unmistakable. Excellence is not defined by privilege, and determination can overcome any obstacle. Every view, every share, every comment amplified that message, proving that talent, discipline, and courage demand recognition. No matter one's background, Zaria Thompson had not only silenced her critics, she had become a beacon, showing the world that greatness does not wait for permission, and that anyone willing to dedicate themselves fully to their craft can achieve the extraordinary. Months had passed since that unforgettable day at the academy, and Zaria Thompson's life had transformed beyond her wildest dreams. Recording contracts with prestigious labels lined her desk. Invitations to perform at world-renowned concert halls filled her calendar, and international orchestras clamored for her collaboration. From the Bronx church basement where she had first practiced, to the stages of Manhattan, London, and Vienna, her journey had become the embodiment of perseverance meeting opportunity. The impact extended far beyond personal success. Scholarships were created in her name, granting talented young musicians from underserved communities access to the instruments, mentors, and lessons they deserved. The academy that once epitomized elitism had undergone a quiet revolution. Diversity policies strengthened, blind auditions emphasized, and mentorship programs established to ensure that no talent would ever be overlooked again. Zaria often reflected on the path that had led her here. Late nights in libraries, early mornings in chilly practice rooms, and every setback along the way had been preparation not just for the music, but for the world she would one day challenge. Sitting with her grandmother, Evelyn, she recalled the lessons that had shaped her. When the world underestimates you, don't shrink. Grow so large that they can no longer ignore your greatness. That lesson, once whispered in a small church, had become her life's anthem. Her mentor, Professor Chen, now officially guiding her career, often reminded her, talent alone isn't enough. What sets you apart is your resilience, your discipline, and your refusal to let prejudice dictate your path. You've shown the world what true artistry looks like, both on and off the stage. The moral was unmistakable. Talent transcends barriers. Dedication and courage amplify it. And when opportunity meets preparation, extraordinary things happen. Zaria had become more than a pianist. She was a symbol of hope and inspiration, a living proof that background, color, or social status could never define potential. As her videos continued to inspire thousands worldwide, the message was clear for viewers: don't wait for permission to excel. Don't let anyone else define your limits, whether it's music, sports, academics, or any dream burning in your heart. Persistence can turn the impossible into reality. If Zaria's story stirred something inside you, if it made you believe that dedication can overcome every obstacle, subscribe to our channel for more stories of extraordinary individuals turning adversity into triumph. Witness how talent, resilience, and determination continue to change lives every day.